Today, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that BMW are killing off the M2. One of the finest sports cars in recent times is being discontinued. But the good news is that they're bringing out a new version, and before that, they're giving the current model a proper send-off. I've always loved the look of the M2. It's always been this beefy, aggressive thing, and the CS just takes that to the next level. New highlights on this car, it's got this really cool front splitter, which contrasts nicely against the ducktail spoiler at the rear. It's got a nice, big, beefy air intake on this carbon fiber bonnet, carbon fiber roof with a visible checkerboard pattern, and a host of other little tweaks that set this apart from the current standard M2 competition.
All of which I'll tell you about while I'm not in the pouring rain, if you don't mind. It has an uprated engine, the one from the M4, an active M locking differential, a carbon fiber front brace, and forged 19-inch wheels with Michelin Cup 2 tyres. All in all, those are some pretty racy tweaks over the M2 comp. But have a guess how much that little lot cost? £75,000, nearly £24,000 more than the normal car. This better be good.
First impressions of the M2 CS. Well, you jump in this car and immediately feel at home. It feels like a proper driver's car. And I think that's down to two things. First and foremost, the driving position. It's spot on, absolutely spot on. And then there's the steering wheel, which is massively thick. I know a lot of people don't like BMW's M Sports wheels because they are so thick, but I quite like the girth. It gives you something to hold on to and makes you feel like you're in control of a car that means business. These seats are phenomenal as well, by the way. They are so supportive. You've got so much lateral support that you instantly feel at one with the car. When you're going through any kind of corner, you feel like you're part of the machine rather than some fleshy addition that kind of flops around on top of it. The pedals are in a perfect position too. This car uses a DCT gearbox, so there is no clutch pedal, but I imagine that the manual version of this car would be absolutely perfect for heeling and towing. So from a driver setup point of view, the M2 CS is bang on. I mentioned earlier how expensive the CS was, and you're spending a lot of your money on the engine. The car uses pretty much the same engine, the S55 that you get in the standard M2 competition, except here it's been beefed up quite substantially. The standard M2 comp made just over 400 horsepower. The M2 CS makes 450 with 550 newton meters of torque, so it's a strong old unit. It's basically the same engine as you get in the M4, which is quite remarkable really, because this is the smaller of the M cars. In terms of performance then, well, it kind of depends on what transmission you go for. The car's available with a 6-speed manual, and if you opt for that, then it will do 0 to 62 in 4 seconds. If you go for the DCT, the dual clutch transmission, then it's a couple of tenths quicker, 0 to 62 in 3.8. And trust me, it feels really strong. It doesn't make any more torque than the M2 competition, but that 550 newton meters feels tremendously strong.
Unlike other M2s, the CS has the option of carbon ceramic brakes if you're willing to spend an extra $6,000. If your intention is to use this car on the road, then they're a luxury you can probably do without. If you're serious about track days, then they're worth every penny. Strong, resilient, and full of feel.
If you were to buy this car, I think it would probably make most sense to go for the 6-speed manual because it's a driver's car and you want to feel as much driver involvement as possible. This press car, unfortunately, isn't fitted with the manual. It's got the DCT, but you know what? I don't mind it too much. This car has 3 different shifting modes for the transmission, the fastest of which, the one that you're most likely to use, is really aggressive. And what it means is that when you change up on a greasy surface like the one that I'm on today, then when it reapplies the torque, you can end up feeling the back end snap out on you. And that is quite disconcerting.
Especially in the wet, just as it would in a manual if you have a heavy right foot when you shift up or don't rev match when you downshift. But the point is, the DCT makes you feel involved in the experience, although you can dial back the ferocity of the changes to a level that feels more smooth and less scary.
They've given the CS a couple of chassis tweaks, including stiffening up the body shell, which comes courtesy of this carbon fiber roof, by the way, because it's actually a structural component. And they've also used stiffer rear axle mounts. They've attempted to make the most of these tweaks by retuning the electronic stability program and also the electronic limited slip differential. I'd love to be able to tell you what difference that makes today, but to be honest, those tweaks are definitely made for the track, and I'm not going to be able to get anywhere near this car's limits out here in greasy, wet, damp conditions like this. Thank you, England. However, what I can tell you is that the front end is absolutely terrific. If you thought the front end on the M2 was good, wait till you hop in this, because you point this thing towards a corner and it just tucks the nose in beautifully. The car uses Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, and I was a little bit worried, I'm not going to lie to you, coming out here and driving in these kind of conditions, but actually once you get some heat in the tyres, then it grips. Understeer is a bit of a myth in this car. The back end is beautifully balanced as well. You can provoke it. There's a couple of different ESP settings. There's MDM mode, which will allow the back end to spin up ever so slightly and give you a little bit more flexibility in terms of applying the throttle and spinning up out of a corner. And then there's, of course, ESP off. With traction off, you can have a lot of fun with this car. It's odd because, in one sense, the M2 CS feels like a scalpel sharp sports car, and then with the traction off it feels almost like a muscle car, so you've got that duality of character that makes this so much fun to drive however you want to drive it. The balance is just beautiful. On the old M3s and M4s, they tended to be a little bit snappy, but here the oversteer is progressive. You can predict what's happening and you can work with the car. Very, very good fun to drive, I'm not gonna lie to you. The big question then, is it worth an extra 25 grand over the standard M2 competition? I don't know, it's a big ask. It really is a big ask. But if you're after a car that can do that all day long, if you're after the very best example of an M car on sale right now, the M2 CS, I'd say it's worth every penny. What a machine.